NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell wrote a letter to team owners that's now public that reads like this. Here's an excerpt. We believe that everyone should stand for the national anthem. Close quote. That's led to speculation that the NFL will propose a rule requiring players to stand for the anthem. However, they got to get the union involved on that. At next week's owners' meetings, this should all come up. One person who's not going to like that rule is CNN's Mark Lamont Hill.
I find it the height of arrogance for particularly for the president, or any white person, to tell a group of black people who are being oppressed, oh, your protest doesn't mean what you think it means anymore, or to tell them that you're not patriotic because you are somehow challenging white supremacy, challenging state violence, etc. They don't get to decide that. These players get to decide that, and it's not disrespectful to a flag to kneel any more than it's disrespectful to a bus to have a bus boycott, or disrespectful to a bridge to sit on the Pettus Bridge for the Voting Rights Act. These are spectacles designed to draw attention to something. That's what this is about, not about the flag.
There's many bridges, there's only one flag, and there's only one American flag. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones has already announced that if any of his players take a knee or do anything on the sideline, they will be benched. ESPN's Jamel Hill, responding to Jones's move on Twitter, as we went over yesterday, is encouraging her followers to stay away from companies that sponsor the Cowboys. Can you imagine this? Telling people to stay away from the Cowboys. ESPN suspended Hill for 2 weeks for violating the company's social media policy, prompting the Reverend Al Sharpton to threaten a boycott of ESPN. Are you confused yet? There's so many tentacles to this story, but we have a lot to debate tonight, so let's do it. Joining us right now to do just that is Horace Cooper, senior fellow at the Heartland Institute, and in Los Angeles, Leo Terrell, a civil rights attorney. Leo, do you like where this story's going? It looks like we might have a resolve beginning this weekend.
Well, I think we got a problem with the story, Brian, because the ultimate issue is this was about racial injustice. And guess what? That flag represents more than the military. It represents teachers, nurses, doctors, and everything. And Roger Goodell's statement is unenforceable. He only has one objective, is to make money for the owners, make money for the owners. Did I say make money for the owners? 70% of the NFL players are African Americans. And there is racial injustice in this country. And I just find it amazing how the president have flip this into being patriotic. One final point. African Americans serve in higher numbers in the military than their actual numbers as far as the population. So tell me what is wrong with kneeling, not turning your back, kneeling, Brian.
One thing, I did not know that stat, but that's an important stat. More African Americans serve in the military.
Yes.
That's an important stat.
Yes.
However, Leo, I'll just tell you honestly, I didn't need to hear any commentary or come into work and do Fox and Friends in the morning. When I saw Colin Kaepernick take a knee, my gut said, you're disrespecting the flag. If you want to talk about racial inequities or law enforcement inequities, whatever your point of view is, just don't do it during the national anthem. I didn't need to see a poll, but I understand where you're coming from. It's not without merit. So let's go and talk to Horace about that. Horace, we can't have this continue to go on. The fans are ticked off. Others are upset. So do you agree that Roger Goodell is going to get a hold of this when the owners meet this weekend?
Well, first of all, good for Jerry Jones. I am pleased to see that owners understand that offending our flag in this way should not be condoned. Shouldn't be condoned by any owner, shouldn't be condoned by any league, and it shouldn't be condoned by any players. Good for Jerry Jones. As for this idea that it's okay to offend the American people, we get the right to also choose whether we are going to watch something that we don't like. Leo talked about these boycotts in the past during the civil rights era where people were able to say, I don't like what you're doing, I won't participate. In overwhelming numbers, we're watching the American people say, we don't like what you're doing and we will not participate. That's as American as apple pie.
Leo, can I just, before you talk, I will say this. I just want to read the rest of the letter just in case you didn't have a chance or our audience didn't. He doesn't just say stand. He is actually trying to be positive and says this. He says that we'll include in our conversation elements that in-season platforms will exist to promote the work of our players on the core issues in which they say matter most. We'll help them promote the positive change in our country. So rather than split the country about sitting out with disrespecting the flag, that's how I view it, you view it differently, they're going to work on the programs that were necessary to make the country better. Do you like that?
I like that, Brian, but what makes this country unique, what makes this country great is we allow dissent, and this is peaceful dissent. I respectfully disagree with my colleague there. You know, we allow religious freedom where certain religious groups do not stand for the flag, and they don't have to. And what is so important is that we're not disrespecting the flag. That flag gives you and I and everyone the right to disagree. There is no disrespecting. There's no turning your back to the flag. It is kneeling. We kneel in church. So what is the disrespect? Tell me what's wrong. And let's remember one other point. There is racial injustice in this country. That is a fact.
Okay, first of all,
let me just add this. Condoleezza Rice said this today. And, you know, she's a huge sports fan, and her dad was a football coach. She was actually mentioned as commissioner of the NFL, and she also grew up in the South in the 60s, which, as you guys know, was not easy. Says whenever the players are trying to do and drawing attention to these issues, it's gone another way now, and that people have stopped listening to each other. They should stand for the anthem. And there you see the Black Power salute from the Browns players. Go ahead, Horace.
It is very disrespectful. And by the way, when you are offending people, you don't get to define to the people that are being offended that they should not be. If you opened up a restaurant in Harlem and all of your waitstaff wore white hoods and people took offense at it, and you said, oh no, this is my special way of entertaining my customers, all the rest of us would be rightly offended at it. And when I see what's happening when these players disrespect the flag, I don't want to hear the other talk that they want to tell us about. They should honor the greatest country that has given them an average of $2 million a player. This is the country that did that.
You see what Brian, he just said? He just censored different opinions. He just censored what people who have a different viewpoint. He is telling the American public on this television program, if you offend me, you're not allowed to speak, you're not allowed to express. That's not what this country is built on. It allows people like me and you and everyone else to have an expression. And again,
I am tired of hearing these lectures from the politically correct. It is false that the police are mistreating black Americans in this country. It is false that the reason that there is a differential in incomes is a result of just the racial status of the American people. But you get to have that conversation. What you don't get to do is disrespect the flag.
I think we could have two conversations, guys. I think I could have, Horace, I think I'd have you and Leo debate law enforcement equities, whether they exist or not. I think we could debate about inequities in our society, even though we've made tremendous progress. And then I think we could put it on another side. Is this the right time and forum to do it? So to me, it's like a family. We agree we're not a perfect family, but let's keep it in-house. And the worst scene I think that I can remember as an American in a nonviolent display was at Wembley Stadium, when the whole world is watching in England, where we stood for God Save the Queen, and about half the players kneeled for our national anthem. It made me feel as though what an embarrassment we are to the world. But I want you to hear what Michael Wilbon just said. Leo, before you do this, it's going to back up your thought probably. Michael Wilbon, on Pardon the Interruption, said this, and I want to share his point of view.
A week ago, I said I thought Jerry Jones displayed some leadership because he seemed to understand compromise, saying, I need to be with my players, and he got down and linked arms and all this stuff. And then he said, but I want to honor the anthem. And I understand that, and it seemed like that was where he was going. But now it just seems like it was as phony as a $3 bill. And the word that comes to my mind, I don't care who doesn't like me using it, is plantation. The players are here to serve me, and they will do what I want no matter how much I pay them. They are not equal to me.
Leo, that seems to be how you feel, sadly.
Well, let me simply say this. I wouldn't use the word plantation, but he has put those African-American players on the Dallas Cowboys team in a very awkward position. He has made them decide. He is forcing them to decide, are they going to stand up due to the racial injustice, or are they going to collect a paycheck? Jerry Jones has put his players in an awkward situation. One last point, Brian. You know what? Sometimes free speech makes people uncomfortable. That's what it's designed for. But what we just heard, and I cannot ignore it, is an African-American man telling the American public there is no police misconduct in this country. That is frightening.
I said that there's no differential based on race. In fact, black Americans as a as a function of their numbers, are actually treated better by police officers than white Americans are.
I just
let's just talk about the facts.
All right, you guys are not going to agree on that. I'm going to give you some good news. Something that's not getting a lot of publicity. Michael Jordan gave $7 million in Charlotte to a low-income neighborhood to build 2 separate hospitals for that area. Countless major, very successful athletes have done things below the radar that they get absolutely no credit for. But if you could do things in that area, if I could get a black player and a white player to go to some of these schools that have some racial unrest and talk about what it was like coming together as a team, getting to know each other's culture together, there's some of the most colorblind places are the locker room. If they could bring that to the classroom and to different schools, don't you think that would be a plus? And don't you think we'd be talking the same way, but only in a positive direction, Leo?
I would agree with you 100%, Brian, but we need to do covert activities like you just articulated with Michael Jordan, and then overt activities. I applaud LeBron James. He's out there using his platform talking about, guess what, racial injustice. So we need the overt activities that you articulated with Jordan, and we need the overt activity with LeBron James, and the covert activities that you expressed involving Michael Jordan.
Leo, don't you think
it's more necessary?
Right. Don't you think it's important to know that LeBron James has many white fans and white kids who like him as black kids? Doesn't that show progress?
Absolutely, Brian. I will submit to you that African Americans, white Americans want to end racial injustice, notwithstanding the comments made by my colleague.
Right.
Instead of this talk about racial injustice, why aren't we seeing Colin Kaepernick and others like them say things like, let's get more science majors, let's get more engineering majors, more math majors in communities of color? That is the way that progress occurs, sitting around pretending that you are a victim solely because of your race, while people are being paid $2 million on average, is not convincing to the American people.
Leo and Horace, this was a intense but respectful debate. So that I consider progress.
Thank you, Brian.
And it's actually going to be very interesting to see what happens this weekend and what the league tries to do. I don't blame the commissioner on this. I think he's trying to do the right thing, and he understands this is a tinderbox. Thanks, guys.